Thanks to our friends at The Motley Fool for sponsoring this video. Visit fool.com/rive to receive the top 10 stocks to buy right now. Virgin Galactic reported earnings after the market closed yesterday, and there was a lot of really interesting information that came out from the company. No surprise that there was a large cash burn, but we did get some good forecasts for the rest of this year and then an idea of what kind of margins the company is expecting for its next generation Delta spacecraft. Now, I haven't done a video on Virgin Galactic in a little while, so I want to give an update of what's happened over the last couple of weeks and then dive into the results. My name is Travis Hoym. Thanks for watching Rive Investing. Please subscribe here on YouTube for all my content. And if you're interested in Virgin Galactic, I have a link below to asymmetric investing, where I'm diving into companies that have 10x potential. A company a lot like Virgin Galactic would fit that bill. But let's dive into the information that we've gotten over the last couple of weeks. I just want to start with this glide flight that was completed from Spaceport America on April 26th. Virgin Galactic has done a nice job giving this information on what the objectives are of each of these flights and what the steps are. So this is the 24th mission, Unity 24. 25 will be the next one. And the company did announce earlier this week that it's actually on pace to be returning to space later this month. Now, this will be an internal crew. This is not a commercial flight. Those commercial flights are expected to come in late June. So look for that. But this is another step in the right direction. Management has been saying for a couple of months now that their commercial flights are going to begin this quarter. And this is one step towards that Unity 25. You can see the biggest mission objective here is the final assessment of full spaceflight systems and astronaut experience before commercial service begins in late June. When those commercial flights begin, they're going to actually rename the flights to Galactic. It'll start with Galactic 1 and then 2 and so on. I'll get to that in the results, but these are a couple of announcements that have happened in the last couple of weeks before earnings were released. From an earnings perspective, this is the press release. I'll get into the presentation in just a second. But the high level numbers here, we want to make sure that Virgin Galactic has enough cash to operate its business for at least the next year. I'll get to those projections, but $874 million in cash. Net loss was $159 million in the quarter, and cash used in operating activities was $136 million. No major surprises there. Virgin Galactic is clearly in an R&D and investment phase. What we really want to see as investors is them move closer to commercial operations. And that's what we're getting with some of those announcements with the flight later this month and then the commercial flight next month. Revenue will be small, but it's going to be meaningful to ramp that revenue relatively quickly. I want to cover some of the financial numbers before getting to the Delta class spacecraft. You can see that they gave free cash flow estimates for the full year. I think that's going to be really helpful to think about what the cash burn profile is going to look like. So you add all these together. On the high end, you're looking at $539 million in cash burn. Given the cash that's on the balance sheet right now of $874 million, that would leave about $474 million in cash on the balance sheet at the end of 2023. That's not a lot of cash for a company that's burning on the order of $100 million or more per quarter. So we will likely see some sort of fundraise from Virgin Galactic, I'd say over the next year or so. So don't be surprised if you see that. I don't know if that will be debt or equity, but there's simply not enough cash coming in, at least until 2025 or 2026 when the Delta class spacecraft ramps, to be able to invest in the business with what's currently on the balance sheet. But good that they give us this guidance here. I think this is one of the things that investors were reacting a little bit positively today, that we at least know what the future looks like from a cash perspective. Revenue from the quarter was $392,000. Again, not reaching commercial operations yet, so revenue isn't going to be very high, but operating expenses were $174 million. There was some stock-based compensation and other non-cash expenses in there. That's why cash burn wasn't quite as high as that number. But most of the press release, presentation, and conference call was really focused on the next generation spacecraft, and that's known as Delta class. The current spacecraft, the Unity spacecraft, actually has 2 pilots and 4 passengers. The Delta class spacecraft, which is the next generation, is going to have 6 passengers and 2 pilots at that $450,000 per seat price, which is where prices are currently for Virgin Galactic space flights. That's $2.7 million in revenue. And they give here that approximate variable operating costs. So basically the cost per flight is about $400,000. That means that for each time that they go up into space, there's about a $2.3 million margin. There's obviously going to be fixed costs that go into a space flight, but management did say that there were costs included in that estimate, like insurance and other things that may be really significant costs for the company reaching commercial operations. So I think that's really interesting from a prospective standpoint. If Virgin Galactic ever gets to the point where it's doing 200, 300 space flights per year, this could be an incredibly profitable company. Now, it's a long time to get there, but this is why I think this is an asymmetric kind of investment. The optionality for this company is literally that it goes to zero or that it becomes an incredibly profitable company with space flights happening all the time. They give some of the economics of the actual spaceship right here, $50 to $60 million cost to build each one. They're not going to just have one of these. They're going to have a large fleet. They talked about that supply chain in the conference call as well. Can do about 500 flights, fly about once per week. In the amortization or depreciation, if you will, of each spacecraft is going to be about $100,000 to $200,000 per flight. So again, you add these two numbers, the $400,000 in variable costs and the approximate amortization costs of $100,000 to $120,000, the real cost for each flight is going to be on the order of $500,000, maybe $600,000 when you add some other costs in there. And the revenue is $2.7 million. Again, we aren't there yet, but that is the potential future for a company like Virgin Galactic. If the company can get over this current investment period and actually get these spacecraft operational and running on a regular basis, this is how profitable the company could be. We aren't expected to see this Delta class spacecraft until probably 2025. And so commercial operations wouldn't be ramping at those kind of margin levels until probably more like 2026. So 3 years or so from now. That's kind of the best case scenario. But the good step for Virgin Galactic right now is that they are on target to do a flight this month and then another one, commercial operations, next month. And then hopefully we start to see some sort of regular cadence of Unity flights, or as they're going to be called, galactic flights, starting later this year. Once a month is probably the best that we can expect, but that would be a great step in the right direction. The next question is going to be, how much does the company have to raise to be able to invest in these new spacecraft and actually build them out to build out commercial operations? That is going to be a significant investment. I don't think we can overlook that. And ironically, if the stock goes up, that would be a great time to sell shares and try to not be quite as dilutive as it would be right now. So that's going to be a challenge for management to get over this current investment phase. But I'm definitely keeping my eye on this company and the stock. If we start to see the point where it gets to free cash flow positive on the horizon, and I don't think we're quite there yet. I think we're still a year or two away from that free cash flow break-even number even being a year or two away. So we might be 4 or 5 years away from actual free cash flow positive. But if it ever gets there, the ramp of free cash flow could be tremendous. That's why I'm intrigued by this company. Still high on my watch list. I have a few shares, but would be looking to add to that position if we get some more positive news from a commercial operations standpoint. So very intriguing company, very intriguing stock. I'd love to hear what you think in the comments section below. Don't forget to follow Rive Investing and check out Asymmetric Investing. This is the kind of company that I'm covering there. Thanks for watching, everybody. I'll see you here next time.